Chapter 2743 Situation. Chapter 2743 Situation. Lord Shaman saw a woman in white charging towards him. His eyes emitted terrifying crimson divine lights. With a wave of his hand, endless crimson divine lights of judgment appeared in the sky and descended towards Ling Long. She would be killed on the spot if she touched any of the divine light. Rumble. A shocking fighting will burst forth from Ling Long's body. The will shot up high into the sky and covered the entire region instantly. At this moment, the white-robed figure before Lord Shaman transformed from a maiden to a war god. This aura, thought Lord Shaman. His eyes narrowed as his facial expression changed slightly. Endless crimson divine lights of judgment rained down on Ling Long. The fighting will circled around her body. It was as though she was garbed in the armor of a war god. The crimson divine lights actually could not penetrate through her fighting will. Ling Long continued to pounce towards Lord Shaman, who was standing on the altar in the sky. This scene caused the spectating cultivators to narrow their eyes in astonishment. What was going on? How could this maiden be so dominant and powerful? As far as they were concerned, Lord Shaman's cultivation plane was already at the peak of the near-deity level. The divine power of the great path that he controlled was uniquely his. If a two-tribulation cultivator were hit by his crimson divine light, even they would likely perish on the spot. However, Lord Shaman's crimson divine light actually had not managed to break through the defense of the maiden. One could imagine the might of her fighting will. Who was this woman dressed in white? Ling Long flew higher into the sky, and soon she approached the altar. She extended her fist and sent out an attack. Her punch appeared ordinary, yet it contained frightening Tiantian fist will. Bent. The blood-red altar was smashed into pieces in the blink of an eye. It crumbled right away after coming in contact with the aggressive fist will. It was as fragile as glass when faced with the woman's overwhelming fighting will. The fist will even continued charging upwards. It crashed into the crimson domain. A dull rumbling could be heard. The entire domain nearly collapsed instantly. Lord Shaman's figure appeared high in the sky. He had dodged the previous attack. A fighting will enveloped his figure as he stared at his opponent. The fighting will, which circled around the woman dressed in white, seemed to be a great emperor. Lord Shaman's will shifted, and an even more terrifying aura immediately burst forth. In the menacing blood-red space, destructive divine lights of judgment flowed all around. In his hand, a crimson scepter appeared. It was a highly mighty imperial arm that emanated powerful will. This, the cultivators below felt their hearts thump non-stop. With one attack, the woman in white forced Lord Shaman to take out his imperial arm. Clearly, Lord Shaman brought out his imperial arm because he suspected that he might not be able to withstand the other party's attacks with his ability alone. This woman in white was actually formidable to such an extent. "It is the scepter of dark judgment," someone commented. The hearts of the various cultivators trembled violently when they saw the scepter that Lord Shaman was wielding. This imperial arm was a precious treasure of the Dark Court. It had always been the weapon used by the great shaman of the Dark Court and was passed down from generation to generation. Since Lord Shaman was the current great shaman and the head of the three dark sages, this scepter of dark judgment was naturally under his control. He extended his arm and pointed the scepter to the heavens. The color of the sky changed instantaneously. An even more frightening blood-red storm stirred up in the space. When the crowd raised their heads, they could see a menacing vortex swirling above them. This vortex seemed capable of eradicating all living beings. Nothing could survive once they were sucked into it. Vast many people could feel that even their spiritual souls were quivering in fear. Their hearts beat frenziedly. They continued to retreat backward. They wanted to stay as far away from the storm as possible. No one could predict how terrifying Lord Shaman's next attack would be. But with a crisp crack, the domain was shattered. It was as though the entire sky had transformed into the dark domain. The sky split open, and the crimson divine light that radiated from the scepter of dark judgment shot up into the high heavens. The power it emanated seemed to be summoning an apocalypse. The scene was too shocking to behold. Rumble. The sounds of thunder reverberated throughout the space. The next moment, myriads of crimson divine light rained down from the sky, with the momentum to smash the entire world into pieces. A beam of extraordinarily bright crimson divine light stood out amidst the densely packed lights. It coalesced into the shape of a sword as it charged towards Ling Long. Ling Long acutely sensed the power exerted by the divine light. Fighting will burst forth frenziedly from her body. She extended her palm, and immediately, countless divine swords surged towards the incoming attack. This technique that she was demonstrating was taught to her by Yi Futian. He guided her to better utilize her power in her attacks. The crimson lights and the divine swords collided in the sky. The sky ruptured as the entire space shook violently. Destructive divine lights rampaged. However, even after making such a ruckus, Lord Shaman's attack failed to touch Ling Long. After she sent out her palm strike, she leaped into the sky and flew towards Lord Shaman. It seemed like she wanted to engage in close combat with the other party. Many cultivators below were not so lucky. Some of them did not manage to escape in time and were crushed by the destructive blow. Some less competent cultivators were incinerated when the crimson divine lights rained down. Their spiritual souls were reduced to dust, perishing on the spot. They had no means to defend themselves. Any cultivators who had yet to reach the tribulation plane did not stand a chance once such a high-level attack hit them. Yi Futian took a glance at the battle happening in the sky. He was well aware of how capable Ling Long was. Even with the help of an imperial arm, Lord Shaman might not be a match for her. Over the past few years, Yi Futian had verified her ability countless times. Therefore, Yi Futian was not worried about the outcome of their battle. He shifted his gaze towards where Infernal Divine Clan leader stood. A moment ago, Yi Futian had slaughtered everyone from his clan. Aside from this clan leader, everyone else was dead. Yi Futian would finish what he started. He had no reason to let the clan leader escape. Divine light circled Yi Futian as his aura locked onto Infernal Divine Clan leader. The latter also sensed this. He retracted his gaze from the battlefield in the sky. He looked towards Yi Futian as murderous intent circled him. He also had not imagined that Yi Futian had such a terrifying existence like the woman dressed in white on his side. She could fight Lord Shaman, who was wielding an imperial arm, unarmed. Her combat ability would rank among the strongest beneath the great emperors. Such an individual was taking orders from Yi Futian. In that case, the situation today would be disadvantageous to them. The direct disciple of the Dark Lord has been killed. Why aren't all of you attacking? Infernal Divine Clan leader said as he looked at the cultivators from the Dark Court as well as the various forces of the Dark World. Dark Saint Hua Yunting was also very powerful, and the Dark Court still had many cultivators who could join the battle. Dark Saint frowned when he saw that matters had spiraled out of control. As he had predicted, things had indeed gotten out of hand. No one knew how this battle would end. But just as Infernal Divine Clan leader said this, a sense of danger suddenly loomed over him. Yi Futian's figure instantly charged forward. Divine light circled around the jade-green divine ruler. He charged directly at the clan leader. It was as though Yi Futian had become a divine sword that could pierce through all powers of the Great Path and destroy all spiritual souls. The power of the Great Path furiously burst forth from his figure. Everywhere the divine light passed over, everything was reduced to dust. From Yi Futian's figure, Infernal Divine Clan leader sensed certain death. Chapter 2744 Slaying Yet Another Near Deity. Chapter 2744 Slaying Yet Another Near Deity. Yi Futian's figure disappeared from where he stood. When he appeared once again, he instantly descended upon Infernal Divine Clan leader. The divine ruler stabbed out like a sharp sword and was extremely domineering. The clan leader never imagined that Yi Futian would actually attempt to kill him in close combat. The long spear imperial arm in the former's hands similarly stabbed forward. The two terrifying powers clashed, and an astonishing storm was swept up. But Yi Futian's figure disappeared again. Around Infernal Divine Clan leader, there suddenly appeared many exterior incarnations of Yi Futian. Dazzling jade-green divine light circled each of them. All of them seemed to possess the power of the divine ruler. These incarnations also seemed to never stop moving. More and more of them appeared, filling up the space around the clan leader. "This is a movement technique," said someone down below as they looked up at the battlefield in the sky. Yi Futian not only possessed the Buddhist technique celerity, but he also cultivated movement techniques. He seemed to have millions of incarnations. No one could tell which was the original. The top forces knew that back in the relic of the old heaven court, Yi Futian had obtained many divine stones that contained divine techniques. Had Yi Futian cultivated this technique from them? Unbeknownst to them, this movement technique was not anything special. However, when used in conjunction with celerity, it became very powerful. No one could pinpoint where Yi Futian's true body was at all. Nevertheless, against top cultivators, it was meaningless to merely be proficient in movement techniques. Behind Infernal Divine Clan leader, a frightening gray silhouette of a god appeared. A dark domain enveloped the surrounding area. Dark infernal fire appeared in the entire domain. Fire engulfed the entire sky. Black lotuses blossomed from the flames and consumed the power in the surroundings. Terrifying infernal fire attempted to consume the incarnations of Yi Futian. However, the incarnations seemed to surround the area and made the space an absolute domain. The sky was filled with jade-green divine light that blocked out the sun. Yi Futian's phantasms were everywhere. Suddenly, the blinding light of Buddha pierced through the darkness. His incarnations became ancient golden Buddhas. All of them possessed indestructible golden bodies. The sound of Buddha reverberated across the sky. The power of the 6 syllables of truth circulated in the area. When the infernal fire descended on the figures of the ancient Buddhas, the fire was actually purified and extinguished. The infernal lotuses in this domain of space similarly withered. They seemed to be sealed by this domain. "It is a domain," exclaimed various cultivators as they looked up at the region. Up until moments ago, the incarnations took the form of Yi Futian. Suddenly, they became various Buddhas who filled the skies. Even more frighteningly, their figures were slanted and formed a ring above Yi Futian and Infernal Divine Clan leader. The light of Buddha shone brightly, and a gigantic Buddha Lord's silhouette appeared. Menacing sounds reverberated as all the Buddhas unleashed all heaven Buddha's seal at the same time. Their palm strikes coalesced into a single Buddha's seal and headed straight towards Infernal Divine Clan leader. "Palace Lord has grown stronger," Lord Chen thought as he observed the battle from the ground below. After a few years of cultivation, Yi Futian's ability had further improved. Even though he had yet to break through the shackles of the plane, he had a more profound understanding of his techniques. Rumble. The clan leader raised his imperial arm. Immediately, infernal storms were whipped up in space. Destructive spears materialized from the eyes of the storms and shot out towards different directions. Each of them targeted a different part of the incoming Buddha's seal. A loud collision echoed in space. The spear hit the Buddha's seal. The latter covered the entire sky and countless symbols of one were carved on it. It radiated with the dazzling light of Buddha. Its momentum pushed Infernal Divine Clan leader slightly downwards. However, countless cracks appeared on the Buddha's seal when the power stored in the imperial arm exploded upon collision. Then the seal disintegrated. The very next second, an intense killing intent permeated the space around the clan leader. A divine sword charged directly towards him from the heavens above. It was the heaven-slaying divine sword. The awe-inspiring sword slashed its way downwards. Infernal Divine Clan leader retaliated head-on with his spear. This time, the momentum of the enormous divine sword pressed down on the clan leader, causing him to slide down uncontrollably. "Get lost," barked Infernal Divine Clan leader as power frenziedly burst forth from his body. He was enveloped by a dark infernal storm. Endless dark currents twirled around the divine sword. The clan leader had activated his imperial arm to its utmost limit. "Presumptuous," a voice rebuked loudly. The thunderous voice echoed in the mind of the clan leader. This sonic wave attack blasted his spiritual soul directly as it was laced with the spell power. The clan leader stared blankly at the heavens above. Then he saw a pair of terrifying eyes. The pupils were jade green in color. The power of the divine ruler, which Yi Futian devoured a few years ago, seemed to have perfectly merged with his own great path. It was now flowing in every single part of his body. Even his eyes contained its power. The clan leader activated his eye sorcery, and his eyes emitted divine lights. Terrifying will burst forth from his jet-black eyes. The infernal god appeared in the eye sorcery zone forged by the clan leader, and it swooped towards Futian along with the dark divine power. Futian gathered the power of the divine ruler in this very eye sorcery zone of his opponent. The infernal god then entered into a complete world. Futian was the god of this world, and his face formed the sky. He transformed into a Tianshan and appeared directly in the zone. As his divine ruler slashed down, its power was akin to the heavenly rule power. It was capable of eradicating all the paths in the world. This is bad. Infernal divine clan leader noticed that things had taken a turn for the worse. He frantically swung his imperial arm and destroyed the heaven-slaying divine sword. Clearly, he realized that Futian had transferred the power of the divine ruler into countering his eye sorcery. However, the clan leader did not have an imperial arm in his own eye sorcery zone. How did Futian manage to pull this off? In the eye sorcery zone of the clan leader, the divine ruler overcame all resistance and slayed its way downwards. Infernal divine clan leader unleashed a majestic might to withstand against it, but his effort was in vain as the divine ruler still penetrated through all things and stabbed into his body. He let out a dull groan. His will was severely injured. His eyes were shut tight as his body tumbled backwards. But a beam of dazzling divine light immediately pierced through the sky. Under the watch of countless astonished gazes, infernal divine clan leader's body trembled violently in the domain. The phantasm of a divine ruler penetrated his figure. His will as well as his flesh had been struck and penetrated by the divine ruler. Futian did not stop there. The crowd saw beams of jade-green divine light constantly flashing as they pierced his opponent's figure again and again. Finally, a divine ruler materialized and stabbed through infernal divine clan leader, pinning him to the domain. A near deity had perished in such a manner. He had been brutally murdered in battle. Chapter 2745 Betraying the Dark Court? Chapter 2745 Betraying the Dark Court? He killed a demigod. The cultivators stared in shock at the scene in front of them. If not many people had been aware when Futian killed Shinyen Buddha Lord, the killing of the clan leader of the infernal divine clan this time around had been witnessed by many powerful parties. The battle between the Dark Court and Ziwei Imperial Palace previously had already attracted many interested parties. Futian had effortlessly killed a giant of the Dark Court, the infernal divine clan leader, even when he had the help of imperial arms. The Dark Court's infernal king was also stunned by what he had just seen and stared dumbfoundedly at the corpse that had been pierced to death by the divine ruler. His senior had been a powerful, dominating figure in the dark world and had ruled over the infernal divine clan. He was regarded as a giant in the dark world, akin to the clan leader of the ancient god clan from the divine prefecture. After the god's continent had surfaced, he had achieved demigod status, obtained imperial arms, and was on his way to greater glory. Yet now, he had been killed by Futian, and Futian had stolen his thunder. Some had watched Futian kill Shinyen Buddha Lord previously. In comparison to that occasion, Futian had had a much easier time killing the infernal divine clan's leader today. The difference in abilities between the both of them was substantial. Futian seemed to have perfectly harmonized the power of the divine ruler, and his current battle prowess ranked him as one of the strongest cultivators in the world. One probably had to be in the ranks of the strongest demigods to defeat Futian, examples being Lord Shaman, Yengi, Di Hao, and more. After Futian had killed infernal divine clan's leader, he had taken the other's infernal spear. He put it away after glancing at it. He had returned Shinyen Buddha Lord's Buddhist divine sword to the Buddhist sect after killing him, but he naturally would not return the weapon to the Dark Court this time around. This was to be a spoil of the battle. Dark Saint looked at the white-haired figure. Even for the Dark Court, the number of people who could go up against Futian could be counted on one hand, while probably only Lord Shaman could be confident of getting the upper hand against him. Dark Flame Sage, and he might not even be able to do either. After all, Infernal Divine Clan's leader had been a demigod and was more or less on the same level as them. However, Lord Shaman, the strongest warrior in the Dark Court after the Great Emperor, did not seem to even have the advantage in his current battle. You could even say he was the underdog. He had been on the losing side ever since the battle started. That woman in white had firmly subdued the great shaman of Dark Court. The battle of the duo moved from the ground to the high skies. Lord Shaman was constantly on the retreat and battered. An extremely terrifying scene appeared above the sky. Lord Shaman held the scepter of dark judgment in his hands and aimed it straight up at the sky. A spine-chilling black divine light immediately pierced through the sky and penetrated the area. Ever since the appearance of the gods' continent, the essence of the relics had spread to and enveloped the original realm, causing the sky over the original realm to fortify and become hard to break through by even the strongest cultivators. Yet, at this moment, the scepter of dark judgment had just broken the sky, resulting in a horrifying black hole. Black divine light gushed in from the opposite side, causing the entire upper sky to turn dark. The sky was pitch black against the shocking blood-red light of the scepter. An enormous figure emerged from within the darkness. He looked like a divine being and was Lord Shaman transformed. He's borrowing the powers of the gods. The cultivators of the Dark Court felt their hearts race. Looking toward the darkness, several altars had appeared there, and the transformed Lord Shaman was in the center of them. These altars seemed to have come from the dark world. Above the sky, what sounded like ancient ritual chanting emerged from the darkness. Be air nervous? Beach. The cultivators of the Dark Court were nervous as they witnessed all these happenings. To think that Lord Shaman had been forced by the woman in white to the extent that he had to summon the dark deity through ancient sacrificial rituals. This was even the first time they had seen Lord Shaman resort to such means. He had never done so a single time before. Be careful, many people on the ground muttered. They were all on high alert at the frightening vibes they felt from the sky. Although the battle had relocated higher up, those on the ground still trembled in fear. Darkness shrouded the entire area, and the people on the ground were becoming anxious. The aura that seeped out was too terrifying, as if the dark deity himself had come to destroy the whole world. Kill! From above the sky, the chanting voices called out this chilling command, and hundreds of millions of blood-red divine lights descended into the darkness as if the powers of dark judgment were hanging from the sky. Be careful, someone shouted from below. They had all felt an intense, threatening sensation. Futian appeared in the sky above the cultivators. He stretched out his hands, and the intimidating wheel of space formed over him. The blood-red divine lights rained down in a flash, and Futian felt that it seemed like even the wheel of space was not able to devour the force of their attacks and would be penetrated. The lights had already made a hole in the wheel of space and now aimed for him. Boom! The jade-green divine light in Futian's body glowed brightly, and energy from the great path continued gushing rapidly into the wheel to intercept the black lights of judgment. Other areas, however, were not as fortunate. Except for where the strongest cultivators were, many cultivators had been stabbed by the blood-red judgment lights and died on the spot. They had no chance to retaliate at all. Even the cultivators from the Dark Court had to defend themselves against the force of the attacks. They were startled by what was happening. No one knew if it was a good thing that the Dark Court got embroiled in this battle. Things had quite gotten out of hand. They looked toward where the attacks of the judgment lights were concentrated and saw the woman in white release a monstrous fighting spirit. She was girded with a war god's armor, and though the judgment lights fell upon her, they could not get past her defense and were shut out. However, the attack had shown itself a threat. What are you doing? Just then, a few figures emerged from within the darkness and came over to the area. Many people looked over to where the voice came from. Beneath the blood-red divine lights, one could vaguely make out yet more arrivals from the Dark Court, with their leader shockingly being the Reaper. As usual, she was cloaked from head to toe and gave off an intense air of mystery as nobody knew her real appearance. You arrived just in time. The cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace have killed our younger brother and the leader of the Infernal Divine Clan. Go and avenge them, Lord Shaman commanded Yi Qinyao and the others who were there as he looked down to the ground. Beat calm / beat death will emanated from and surrounded Yi Qingyao's body. It was immensely threatening, but it did not head toward Yi Futian and the rest. Instead, it went to where Lord Shaman was. Stop! Yi Qingyao's words caused Lord Shaman to frown. He replied, "You intend to betray the Dark Court for old friends." Chapter 2746 on Opposing Sides. Chapter 2746 on Opposing Sides. Lord Shaman was the great shaman of the Dark Court, second in place only to Dark Lord, and was held in high esteem within the Dark Court. Everyone considered him the heir of Dark Lord. However, he had never become complacent. He was keenly aware that he had slowly but surely arrived at his current position. Even if he had conspired to assassinate his big brother in the past, Dark Lord had not punished him harshly despite being furious. After killing his big brother, he had become the first in line behind Dark Lord. He knew Dark Lord's ambitions and held him in high regard as his master. Dark Lord desired to see darkness encapsulate the land and fall on the entire world. He wanted every corner of the world to be living in darkness, without rules and without order. Therefore, the Dark Court itself was also anarchy, not constrained by rules and order. It advocated the survival of the fittest. The cultivators in the Dark Court all had unique personalities, and Lord Shaman knew that he and his master were similar types of people. He had been practicing the dark arts all along and had always strived to do his best to obtain his master's approval. This was probably the only dream that he had been passionate about since he was young. Yet he had never achieved it even once. He thought the Dark Lord had no favorites. He desired a world of darkness with no standards and order. Then Yi Qingyao showed up. Yi Qingyao was destined to be in the darkness from birth. She was called the new child of darkness and belonged here. Master Dark Lord had high hopes for her, and Lord Shaman understood why. The Dark Lord knew that Yi Qingyao was a person capable of bringing darkness into the world. However, what Lord Shaman could not accept was how differently Master Dark Lord treated Yi Qingyao compared to the others. His master had never been concerned about anyone. Still, he would take excellent care of Yi Qingyao, granting her many privileges, to the extent that no one in Dark Court dared to lay a finger on Yi Qingyao. Someone once did and faced tragic consequences. Due to this apparent preferential treatment, many in the Dark Court felt that Yi Qingyao was the appointed heir of the Dark Lord and the true child of darkness. Even if she had been snatched from Yi Futian, the master had not minded in the least, as if he firmly believed that she would eventually bring about darkness to the world. Thus, Yi Qingyao's position was unshakable in the Dark Court. Her status was equal to the 3 dark sages and superior to the possessor of the Dark Throne and many other top cultivators. Of course, Yi Qingyao did not let Dark Lord down. She was definitely born of the dark. In contrast to the other cultivators, she could already endanger the lives of those on the level of the Renhuang Plain without a need to train. Some people said that she was the reincarnation of the Reaper. There were many rumors about Yi Qingyao in the dark world. The majority did not even know that she was female but only knew that the cloaked, mysterious child of darkness would bring darkness and death into the world. Yi Qingyao was given the title of Reaper. Lord Shaman was jealous of Yi Qingyao. No one would guess that the leader of the 3 sages, the great shaman of the Dark Court, would ever be jealous of anyone as he was so highly ranked. Yet all that had happened today was due to his jealousy. This was not a coincidence, but orders he had sent out led to the conflict breaking out between the Dark World and Ziwei Imperial Palace. He wanted the people of Dark World to find out where Yi Qingyao's heart really lay, especially his master. She did not belong to the darkness. Yi Qingyao exposed a pair of jet-black eyes from under her cloak. She looked up at Lord Shaman. She was known as the Child of Darkness, and she did indeed have an extremely dark side to her. However, for her Yi Futian was the only light. If the Dark Court wanted to take down Yi Futian, she would stand on the side of her only light and not belong to the darkness anymore. You can continue. Yi Qingyao's voice was cold. She actually asked Lord Shaman to continue. She then looked at the surrounding cultivators and stated, "All those from the Dark World are not allowed to lift a finger." Lord Shaman stared at Yi Qingyao upon hearing her words. Her raspy voice hid an unmistakable command, and the cultivators were perturbed by it. As the great shaman of the Dark Court, I command all of you. Show no mercy to anyone of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Kill them all, Lord Shaman said coldly. His voice rang through the area, and he continued, Yi Qiao, you too have to obey the will of darkness. As he was speaking, he held out the scepter of dark judgment. The blood-red divine light shone down as if he represented the will of darkness. The cultivators of the dark world were caught in a dilemma. They never expected such a situation to happen. The great shaman of the Dark Court, Lord Shaman, had pitted himself against the Reaper. If they went by ranking, the great shaman would take precedence. Only the Dark Lord ranked above him, and he placed first in the Dark Court. As for their skill levels, the same applied. Even Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint, the remaining two of the three Dark Sages, were no match for him. However, his opponent was Yi Qingyao, who everyone in the Dark Court knew was the current favorite of the Dark Lord, and who would possibly become his future heir. Not too long ago, Yi Qingyao inherited the will of Azura. Even if they left out the possibility that she would become the future Dark Lord one day, she was still a challenging opponent that not many would be able to handle. How could they pay the price of angering Yi Qingyao? Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint were also present and felt somewhat awkward. It seemed like Lord Shaman held a rather large grudge against Yi Qingyao. Rifts were inevitable given how both of them were heirs of the Dark Court, and it was up to anyone's guess how things would turn out in the future. Seeing no one move to carry out his order, Lord Shaman felt embarrassed. Numerous blood-red beams of light rained down, and he coldly commanded again, "Did no one hear what I said?" As he finished speaking, lights of judgment fell from the sky, and all at once, many cultivators from the Dark Court and Dark World stepped out. They were naturally afraid of Lord Shaman. They were no strangers to his ways and figured that if they disobeyed him, they might not be able to make it out alive. In addition, their death would have been meaningless. "You'll die if you dare move." Yi Qingyao spat out a warning in a chilling voice. As she spoke, a strand of death will enclose the area, and the cultivators who had stepped out sensed a strong aura of death. At that moment, they knew that going against Yi Qingyao meant that they would die on the spot upon activation of her will. They froze mid-step, stuck in limbo. The surrounding cultivators were also stunned by what they had just seen. Who would have thought that the two giants of the Dark Court would end up being on opposing sides? Chapter 2747 A Stubborn Personality. Chapter 2747 A Stubborn Personality. Kill them. Lord Shaman ordered a second time. A murderous intent enveloped the cultivators from the Dark World. It seemed as if they would be killed immediately if they did not obey his orders. Poor things. The watching cultivators all felt sorry for those from the Dark World. They were stuck having to choose between two impossible choices. One was the great shaman, and the other, the Reaper. Both were people they could not afford to offend. Both were people capable of killing all of them. Die if you do. Die if you don't. The options available to them all led to death with zero chance of surviving. But truthfully, even if the strongest cultivators of the Dark World agreed to help out in the battle, would they be good enough to kill Yi Futian? Seeing how things stood currently, it was a tall order. The Dark World may have more cultivators, but going by overall prowess, Ziwei Imperial Palace did not lose out at all. The woman in white could take on Lord Shaman by herself and even forced Lord Shaman to summon the help of a deity to keep up with her. Aside from Lord Shaman, who else could take on Yi Futian? The leader of Infernal Divine Clan had been killed not long ago. Perhaps the other two of the three Dark Sages? But would Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint follow Lord Shaman's orders? Besides, Ziwei Imperial Palace also had Supreme Sword Lord on its side. And if that was not enough, Yu Sheng from the Devil World was also lying in wait for a prime opportunity. In this battle of the finest, who was stronger? In this setting, just what could the cultivators of the Dark World possibly do to kill Yi Futian? Yet Lord Shaman had given this order. His objective was not to kill Yi Futian but to drive those from the Dark World to their graves. The spine-chilling blood-red light was already shining upon the cultivators of the Dark World. Some moved, causing Yi Qingyao to react, but Yi Futian stopped her. "Allow me, Qingyao." He could see that Lord Shaman and Yi Qingyao were not on good terms, probably because Yi Qingyao had shaken Lord Shaman standing in the dark court. Yet even before he had lifted a finger, the cultivators who stepped out were blanketed from head to toe in the death will. Their rigid bodies dropped straight down to the ground. There was no chance of survival, and they died immediately. What on earth? Many of the cultivators turned to look at Yi Qingyao in shock. The death will was horrifying, able to kill without a trace. They had not even seen Yi Qingyao lift a finger, and those who walked out were already dead. Their lives were taken. Just what kind of ability was this? The Reaper. They recalled Yi Qingyao's other name. She had been given the name of Reaper, and seeing what just happened, she certainly lived up to her name. Yi Futian was surprised too. He had not thought that Yi Qingyao would have reacted so quickly. Yi Futian naturally understood Yi Qingyao's status after witnessing the events. If Lord Shaman could get rid of her quickly, he would not have gone to such extents. Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint were on the fence and sided with no one. Yi Qingyao's position in the Dark Court was exceptional. Just that, today's happenings might result in a bit of trouble for Yi Qingyao. The cultivators were still reeling as the battle came to an end. Ziwei Imperial Palace did not lose out at all during today's battle. At the same time, the Dark Court suffered a significant loss with the demise of a giant of the Dark World, the leader of Infernal Divine Clan, and the clan's dissolution. On the other hand, the cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace suffered not a single loss. Supreme Sword Lord put away his will and came to Yi Futian's side. That lass is thoughtful. She killed them on purpose. Yeah. Yi Futian nodded. Obviously he knew that. This time around, the people who had died were no ordinary people. They included the direct disciple of the Dark Lord and will most likely attract his attention. If you had continued killing, you might incur his rage. She did this so she could protect you. If the Dark Lord wanted to do anything to you, he would have to get past her first, or she would betray the Dark World, Supreme Sword Lord reasoned. She isn't scared of Lord Shaman but worried that the Dark Lord would take you on personally. This lass is still as stubborn as when she was young. Yi Futian looked toward the disappearing voices. She probably wanted to let everyone know that if the Dark World desired to have the Reaper, they could not lay a single finger on Yi Futian. Chapter 2748 An Invitation from the Dark Court. Chapter 2748 An Invitation from the Dark Court. After the cultivators from the Dark World left, the other cultivators that were around also left. Many people were awed. Ziwei Imperial Palace currently had a battle prowess just as strong as the Emperor's. At least, it was so for the top stratum. Of course, when compared with the whole of the Dark World, the gap was still rather wide. There were still many other powerful figures in the Dark World, and they had made progress in the relics, like the ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture. If the Dark Lord commanded all the forces in the Dark World to assemble and attack Ziwei Imperial Palace together, Ziwei Imperial Palace might not withstand the battle. But yet again, the cultivators in Ziwei Imperial Palace had made tremendous progress in a short amount of time. If given a bit more time, how much further would they have improved? Once Yi Futian entered the Imperial realm and became an emperor, the world would have gained her 8th superpower. Yet, the path to becoming a great emperor was not easily conquered. Yi Futian would probably require many more years before he reaches that stage. From the beginning, many great cultivators had been chasing this dream, yet how many had succeeded? Of course, with all the changes that had taken place in the world, the chances of achieving emperor level had significantly increased. This world was headed for a revolution. From among Lord Shaman, Yan Gi, Dugawuxia, Di Hao, Ji Wudao, Yi Futian, and others more, who would be the first to reach their goal? Or would it be another more senior cultivator? Fang Xiyuan moved beside Yi Futian. He slightly lowered his head. Master, I was wrong, he admitted. Do you really think that you are in the wrong? Yi Futian questioned Fang Xiyuan. Fang Xiyuan raised his head to look at Yi Futian. Upon seeing Yi Futian's expression, he realized that his master knew him too well. Obviously, he still did not think that he was wrong to have killed his opponent. After all, it was the Dark Court who first started killing. They had also wanted to plunder their imperial arms, and if they did not kill them, they would have been killed. Just that, it resulted in an extremely unfortunate consequence and brought trouble unto his master and Ziwei imperial palace when he offended the Dark Court. Many years ago, third brother taught me that there were many ways of reasoning in this world, but no matter how good the reasoning, it was still no match for a fist. Of course, there was nothing wrong with what you all did. If anything, it would be that we of Ziwei Imperial Palace are not as strong as the Dark Court, Yi Futian counseled. It was commonplace for people in the cultivation world to use their fighting abilities to settle all matters. If they had not displayed their prowess today, Lord Shaman would not have let them off but carried out a massacre instead. What's done is done. Go back and practice more, Yi Futian dismissed him. Yes, master. Fang Siyuan nodded. Indeed, he would have to get better. If not, master would have to bear the consequences if he got into trouble in the future. The cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace had all left and returned to Yi Imperial Palace. They had stirred up quite the bit of disturbance. The current Ziwei Imperial Palace was no longer just an ordinary existence, and their confrontation with the Dark Court must have gained quite a bit of attention. If the great emperors were not in the picture, Ziwei Imperial Palace was a force capable of shaking things up within the 7 realms. The following days went by like normal. For the Dark Court, the betrayal of the Reaper was enough to get the attention of the Dark Lord. Unfortunately, this matter would have to be reported to the Dark Sovereign. The days passed one by one as Yi Futian continued training quietly. He wished to break through the shackles soon. It had been years since he had got stuck and had not been able to make progress for a long time. Of course, this was only in Yi Futian's mind. Many cultivators had been stuck on this plane even longer than his combined practicing years. There were even more who had not been able to move past this stage their entire lives. Many of the top cultivators had only been able to succeed after the appearance of the divine relics. That Yi Futian was able to get near this stage so quickly was due to his inborn talents and the gift of fate and luck. The divine ruler he had attained at the shrine of the Kurura had helped him along this path. Yi Futian stood on the sky stairwell within Yi Imperial Palace while old Ma told him something. Yi Futian looked toward the distance, and soon a group of figures slowly approached them. They were cultivators from the Dark Court, and at their head was impressively the Dark Saint Hua Yunting. Hua Yunting looked up at the sky stairwell. Standing on the sky stairwell, he was surprised to sense a solemn will. He lifted his foot and started to climb up the stairwell. An aura leaked from his body as if it intended to weaken the pressure imposed by the sky stairwell. As one of the highest-ranking characters in the Dark World, he could not afford to let himself be seen as weak over here. Yi Futian quietly stood at the top and watched Hua Yunting climb up, step by step. He did not move but just watched quietly, although he still exerted an invisible form of pressure. The both of them could be counted as acquaintances, but as the other party was from the Dark Court, Yi Imperial Palace's authority must be exerted. Yi Imperial Palace had Imperial in its name, although he had yet to become an emperor. Even so, when cultivators below the emperor level came here, it was imperative to let them be aware of Yi Imperial Palace's might, no matter who they were. Finally, Hua Yunting reached the top of the sky stairwell but was stopped by old Ma before he could continue. Hua Yunting frowned and looked at Yi Futian. Please go ahead, Dark Saint. Yi Futian gestured him to come over. At once, the invisible pressure vanished. Hua Yunting glanced at Yi Futian and made his way over. He stood opposite Yi Futian and said, Lord Shaman reported to the Dark Lord about what happened that day, and Yi Qingyao was summoned back to the Dark Court. You probably were able to tell that this issue was started by the Dark Court. I could even say that it was to target Qingyao. The Dark Lord most likely would have realized that too, Yi Futian replied. This does not matter. The fact of the matter is that Yi Qingyao was willing to betray the Dark Court for you. She purposely openly showed her affiliation, which is a threat to the Dark Lord, Hua Yunting countered. And so, Yi Futian looked at the other. What did you come find me for? The Dark Sovereign ordered me to invite you over to the Dark Court, Dark Saint answered, causing Yi Futian to be taken aback. Why would the Dark Sovereign invite him to the Dark Court? Old Ma beside him was frowning deeply. He looked at Yi Futian with worry. He obviously felt that Yi Futian should not go with them. How can I be sure that this was from the Dark Sovereign and not from you guys? Yi Futian asked. Hua Yunting took out a dark jade slip and handed it over to Yi Futian. Yi Futian infused his consciousness within and was soon able to make out a presence that led to the appearance of an image of the Dark Sovereign. He was standing on the Dark Temple and conveying his order. Hua Yunting definitely would not be able to feign such an authoritative and divine air as that. This is the order conveyed to me by the Dark Sovereign, Hua Yunting started. As for whether you wish to follow it or not is up to you. Although we both know each other, if the Dark Sovereign wanted to finish you guys off, there would be no need for him to go to such trouble. We can disregard what happened before, but in the future, we hope that you will not choose to stand on the opposing side of the Dark Court. After he had finished talking, Hua Yunting left. This time, he flew through the sky instead, with the other cultivators from the Dark Court following after him. Chapter 2749 A Tyrant. Chapter 2749 A Tyrant. After Hua Yunting left, Old Ma said to Yi Futian, "You definitely must not go." That was the Dark World. It had no law and order, and once Yi Futian went, his life was no longer in his hands. Yi Futian looked at Hua Yunting's disappearing figure thoughtfully. Why would the Dark Lord invite him over? This was different from the time when he went to the Devil World. That time, Yu Sheng was in danger, but the Devil Emperor and Yu Sheng had connections after all. Besides, although it was still dangerous, he had not formed any enmity with the Devil World yet. The Dark World was completely different. He had killed the direct disciple of the Dark Lord and many other cultivators. Yi Qingyao could betray the Dark Court for him. He also wholly lacked knowledge about the Dark Lord. If he decided to proceed, it would be much more dangerous than when he had gone to the Devil World. Furthermore, from what he could see, the Devil World still had a system of law and order and was strict on them. The 100 of millions inhabitants of the Devil World had great respect for the Devil Emperor. It might not be the case for the Dark World. Just that, if he did not go, what might the Dark Lord do to Yi Qingyao? Why would the Dark Lord invite him over? A few figures came flashing past and landed on the sky stairwell. They said to Yi Futian, "You must not go." Obviously, they all did not wish for Yi Futian to risk his life in the Dark Court. In the past, the Dark World had carried out a massive massacre in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path that had resulted in the cultivators of the original realm forming a very bad impression of the Dark World. It was cruel and murderous, and the ruler of the Dark World, the Dark Lord, was said to be a cold-blooded tyrant as well. He killed without feelings and made it to his current position by stepping over countless bodies to conquer the Dark World. The Dark Lord of the Dark Court had the worst reputation among the 6 emperors. He had no regard for any and all life. "Master, this whole thing was caused by me. If you insist on going, please bring me along. I will bear the responsibility." Fang Xiyuan stood before Yi Futian and bowed. Yi Futian replied, "Don't think so much. You just happened to get caught up with this matter. If it weren't you, it would be some other from Ziwei Imperial Palace. Luckily it was you. If not, our own might have died instead." Although what happened before was caused by Fang Xiyuan, he was not their target. It would have happened with or without him. But Fang Xin wanted to say more, but Yi Futian waved his hand to dismiss him. "Go and practice. Don't make so much fuss for nothing. I will consider it carefully and will not go if I am not confident in my chances." Everyone was still somewhat worried after hearing Yi Futian's words. They understood him. If no one was involved, they knew that he would take every precaution. But this involved Yi Qingyao, and knowing how much Yi Futian cared for the people around him, there was definitely the possibility that he would disregard the risk and go. "Please stay, Sword Lord. I need to discuss some issues about cultivation with you. The rest may go," Yi Futian urged as he saw that everyone seemed reluctant to leave. They left at once, constantly turning back to look at Yi Futian. After they left, Yi Futian guided Sword Lord to the cultivation ground at the back of the palace. He asked, "Sword Lord, do you have to know anything about the Dark World?" "Yes." Supreme Sword Lord nodded slightly. "I don't wish for you to go as well. The Dark World is in anarchy. Of course, I'm not worried that you might be in danger if you go to the Dark World. After all, at your current level, except for the emperors, very few can pose a threat to you. You should be able to move around the realms without much trouble. But the Dark World is a different story in that its lack of law and order was brought forth by its own ruler. Where you are going, the ruler of the Dark World is the Dark Lord, and he has been called the Dark Tyrant. Tyrant, Yi Futian murmured to himself. No wonder everyone wanted to stop him from going. However, this tyrant seemed to show favoritism toward Yi Qingyao. From what I know, Lord Shaman inherited the position of the Great Shaman because he assassinated his senior. He then became the leader of the 3 Dark Sages, but the Dark Lord did not pursue matters. Supreme Sword Lord continued. If you plan to go, I'll say that there are too many uncertainties. Once you enter the Dark Court, things will not be up to you any longer. But has Sword Lord ever considered that since the Dark Lord is known as a tyrant, he fears nothing? If he wanted me killed, he could just come here and finish me off. He doesn't need to waste so much time to invite me there, Yi Futian reasoned. I don't think it will be too hard for someone like him. What you said makes sense too, but the Dark World is his territory after all. The Dark Lord is somewhat restrained by the other emperors and cannot just come here and incite matters on a whim. Don't forget that when God's continent first appeared, the 6 emperors appeared simultaneously and set the rule that they would not interfere with what happened on this continent. If the Dark Lord came, then the others could follow suit too. Supreme Sword Lord had his own reasoning as well. That's true. Yi Futian nodded. That makes sense too. I will consider more. Yes, please do. Supreme Sword Lord nodded and bade him farewell. After Supreme Sword Lord left, Yi Futian sat alone, thinking. Hua Jiu came by and told him, if you intend to go, you must be vigilant at all times. I know. Yi Futian laughed and nodded his head. It seemed like it was still Hua Jiu who understood him the most. Don't worry about matters here. I will maintain contact with Yu Sheng. If you run into any trouble in the Dark Court, I will let Yi Imperial Palace team up with Yu Sheng to stage war against the Dark Court, Hua Jiu continued. But you must ensure that Ling Long listens to me. Yi Futian laughed and nodded again. Ling Long possessed part of his will, so there would be no problems on this end. Obviously, he did not plan to bring Ling Long along on this trip as there was no reason to. As for everything else, he could handle without Ling Long. Yi Futian made some arrangements in Yi Imperial Palace and also accepted Hua Jiu's recommendation that if he ran into any danger in the Dark Court, it would be a good idea to use the cultivators from the Dark Court here as duress. If that really happened, the Devil World and the Dark World would become enemies. This would definitely not be a good thing for the Dark World when they were supposed to have shared a common enemy. After he had finished making arrangements, Yi Futian left Yi Imperial Palace by himself. He came to where the Dark World was situated, and there remained a beam of light in the sky. It was the link between both places, linking the Dark World to the God's continent, not only here, but the other realms as well. There were still cultivators walking in and out of the passageway, making their way to the world below. Yi Futian's figure glowed, and he entered one of the links. However, he was headed up and immediately went into the passage that led to the Dark Ward. Subsequently, his body vanished from the area. Chapter 2750 Lord Yellow Spring. Chapter 2750 Lord Yellow Spring. The reality of the Dark World was a little different from what Yi Futian had imagined. He thought the Dark World was like the hell described in legends, shrouded in total darkness. However, the world in front of him was no different from the Divine Prefecture at this moment. However, that was not what the Devil World looked like when he entered the Devil World. Terrifying clouds of catastrophe shrouded the entire Devil World, which was located under the Devil Abyss. Nevertheless, Yi Futian was only surprised for a second, as he then moved forward, traveled by air, and headed in a certain direction. At this moment he had no idea where he was. Like the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World was extremely expansive and had many domains. Among them, top cultivators were, without exception, gathered in the most important areas of the Dark World. For example, Yellow Spring Sea, Hell Realm, Nether Valley, Infernal Mountain, and places such as those were considered the center of the Dark World. And the most core area of the Dark World was in the center, surrounded by these regions. Once crossing over these areas, one may reach Azura City. The end of Azura City was where the Dark Court was located. The regional composition of the Dark World was vastly different from that of the Divine Prefecture. The strongest forces were concentrated in a larger area surrounding the Dark Court. Of course, there were also many forbidden zones, some extremely dangerous places, and some extraordinary characters in other parts of the Dark World. After Yi Futian familiarized himself with the situation inside, he hurried in the direction of Azura City. Although he was inside the Dark World, no one dared to provoke Yi Futian along the way. After all, Yi Futian's temperament was noticeably exceptional. Although he did not release a strong aura outward, top cultivators would often form an invisible atmosphere around themselves. They deliberately kept it under control, otherwise, cultivators in higher realms would be able to sense this invisible coercion. When a certain realm of cultivation was reached, the perception of the cultivator was highly elevated as well. As Yi Futian kept on his way, he finally came to the core of the Dark World and entered the domain of the Yellow Spring Sea. The Yellow Spring Sea was not some ordinary body of water. This watery region was the real yellow spring that could corrode someone's body and spiritual soul. Death was imminent with just one touch. Anyone unfortunate enough to fall into the yellow spring would die with no body left to be retrieved, and their souls lost forever. According to legend, this Yellow Spring Sea formation started when the great Emperor Yellow Spring perished in primordial times. When he fell, the blood that flowed out from his body turned into what was now known as the Yellow Spring Sea. This cultivator, who had come to the Yellow Spring Sea, was a disciple of Buddhism, and yet he roamed in the center of the Dark World. This was undoubtedly the equivalent of committing suicide. The Dark World and the Buddhist world had always been at odds with one another, and their powers were on opposite sides. The divine light of Buddhism illuminated the space, directly covering the opponent within its bound. All of a sudden, the old man looked shocked and declared loudly, "I am the disciple of Lord Yellow Spring. If you kill me, there will be consequences later." Boom! The Buddha's divine flame continued to burn, and the man screamed immediately. His body incinerated into nothing under the burning flames. Someone who could not tolerate the slightest disagreement and unleashed deadly attacks simply because of it would naturally be undeserving of his consideration and mercy. He would only pay them back tenfold more. Instantaneously, his opponent's body disappeared, and Yi Futian continued on his way. However, before Yi Futian could get too far, the Yellow Spring Sea raged again, and this time, the perimeter of its violence extended even further. Yi Futian stopped and looked at the tumbling and roaring sea. Then, a group of cultivators appeared on the sea's surface, and every one of them was a top Renhuang figure. In the distance, a cultivator of the Tribulation Plane appeared and stood in the void. It was a young man clad in a yellow garment. He was the eldest disciple of Lord Yellow Spring, cultivator of Buddhism. The young man stared at Yi Futian. The will of Yellow Spring shot out from his eyes. "Get out of the way." Yi Futian walked forward towards where they were without any intention of stopping. The other could sense that faint aura emitting from Yi Futian and thought that as a merely Renhuang cultivator, what did Yi Futian have that could warrant such display of arrogance? "You asked for it," the other man concluded coldly, the terrifying will of the Yellow Spring blooming from him. Yi Futian continued moving forward, and the young man was about to take action. "Stop!" A great shout was heard, which shook the Yellow Spring. "Get back, all of you!" An indifferent voice came through the void, and everyone's expression changed slightly. They turned their heads to look at Lord Yellow Spring, who has arrived, a little puzzled. Lord Yellow Spring's eyes were fixed upon Yi Futian. He thought to himself, "This man has actually come to the Dark World. Get back!" After Lord Yellow Spring chided coldly again, these cultivators finally backed away and did as they were told. Yi Futian continued walking forward and through the crowd. He only stopped when he reached Lord Yellow Spring. He said, "Come with me." Having said that, he continued to walk forward. Lord Yellow Spring was somewhat stunned by this request, but still, he followed Yi Futian as asked. Chapter 2751 A Place Outside the World. Chapter 2751 A Place Outside the World. The people under Lord Yellow Spring's command were shocked by what they saw at first, and then they broke out in cold sweat. They realized that they had almost died at Yellow Spring. Their master, Lord Yellow Spring, was treating this man so respectfully. They could only imagine that the other man was definitely someone they couldn't afford to offend. That was a close call. They trembled in their hearts as they stared at the departing figures. Who was this white-haired young man that even their master had to be so humble in front of? Futian continued making his way forward, Lord Yellow Spring trailing behind him. Then Futian, who was in front, suddenly asked, "How much do you know about the Dark Lord?" The surprise on Lord Yellow Spring's face showed that he was caught by surprise. He replied, "I dare not make conjectures regarding my lord." He was silent, with a look of awe and fear in his eyes. Clearly, he didn't dare say anything. This was the dark world. Even if no one was around, it was best not to make unnecessary comments. Or else, the slightest carelessness might attract disaster with fatal consequences. "Speak," Futian spat, and his tone was ice-cold with an undeniable sense of authority. Lord Yellow Spring's expression was not very pleased because he did not dare to speak of the Dark Lord at will. However, at this moment Futian was right next to him. If he continued to hesitate, who knew if Futian would turn on him instead? The Dark Lord rules the Dark World, which was respected and feared by all. Although I cultivate in Yellow Spring, I have no chance to contact my lord at all. Even those who cultivate in the Dark Court proper have few opportunities to be in direct contact with my lord. Lord Yellow Spring continued, "The Dark Lord's status is most supreme, and within the court, only those who are in the centermost core may be in touch with him." "Does the Dark Lord care about anyone?" Futian asked. Lord Yellow Spring looked at Futian and wondered what his purpose in asking this question was. Why would he want to know about the person the Dark Lord cared about? As far as I know, the Dark Lord doesn't care much about anyone or anything. The only thing he cares about is for darkness to descend across all of the world. Lord Yellow Spring added, "My lord is the darkness incarnate." Futian was quiet for a moment and thought that this was similar to what Supreme Sword Lord had told him. Indeed, this Lord of the Dark World resembled a cold-blooded tyrant who wanted to bring darkness to the world. What he represented was the will of darkness. However, in this area, at the junction of Hell's Yellow Spring and Infernal Mountain, there is an island, and on that island resides a mistress. According to rumors, she may have some connection to the Dark Lord. "Perhaps you can go and take a look," said Lord Yellow Spring. Futian turned his head and stared at Lord Yellow Spring. The icy look that was coming from him seemed to pierce into the other man's mind. Nevertheless, Lord Yellow Spring did not avoid his eyes but returned the look directly. "Who?" Futian asked. "What is her relationship with the Dark Lord?" "You'll know when you get there. It seems to be a totally different world there." Lord Yellow Spring looked at Futian and continued, "When you get there, you'll understand that I am not trying to deceive you." Futian saw that the other man pledged in earnest, so he pointed his finger at the other party's brow chakra, and he looked directly into the other man's eyes. Lord Yellow Spring was quite stunned, and yet, his eyes were still trained on Futian. "Give me the location," said Futian, and divine light shot out between the brows of Lord Yellow Spring and penetrated Futian's mind. Soon after, Futian put his finger down, and with a turn of his mind, his body disappeared directly from where he was. After Futian left, Lord Yellow Spring let out a long and suppressed sigh as he relaxed his body. He watched Futian's disappearing figure. A cold light flashed across his eyes as if containing a great deal of murderous intent. Since Futian had dared to venture into the dark world, then he should prepare to die here. But just now, Futian reappeared in front of Lord Yellow Spring once again, which took Lord Yellow Spring by total surprise. His expression changed instantly to one of shock. Suddenly, there was much respect and humbleness reflected in his eyes. "As I suspected, it seems that not everything you said can be believed." As soon as Futian's voice fell, he raised his hand and pointed at Lord Yellow Spring. The will upon Lord Yellow Spring erupted like mad, but he was unable to escape the prowess of this one finger. His brow chakra was directly penetrated, and his spiritual soul was shattered. There was a strong sense of fear in his eyes as he stared straight ahead. Only then did Futian's figure finally and truly disappear between heaven and earth. In the distance, when the cultivators who lagged behind finally caught up with them, they were there just in time to witness Lord Yellow Spring's body falling haplessly into the Yellow Spring Sea below. Their hearts palpitated as their hearts filled with fear. How frightening was that man! He had slain Lord Yellow Spring with just one finger. But in the next moment, they all moved in at the same time, rushing towards Lord Yellow Spring's body frantically. Those who reacted a little slower sensed something as well, so they, too, ran in the same direction quickly. On the Yellow Spring Sea, war had erupted. Futian continued to move forward, crossing the vast and endless Yellow Spring Sea, passing the terrifying abyss of the Hell Realm, and saw the black destruction inflicted by Infernal Mountain. Along the way, there were quite a few cultivators who tried to attack him, but the outcome was one and the same. They had all perished by Futian's hands without exception. However, Futian could also see the chaos that permeated this world. Although he did not blatantly broadcast his aura, it was clear that his cultivation realm was at the peak level of Renhuang no matter how restrained he was. Powerful cultivators could perceive something of his realm, yet they continued to take lethal action against him, and these were compelling individuals. Futian's experience demonstrated how chaotic it currently was in the Dark World. However, even in the Dark World, few could contend with Futian, therefore everyone who challenged him was now dead. At this time, Futian came to another region, the place where the Yellow Spring Sea and the Hell Realm intersected. The frightening Infernal Mountain could be seen looming in the distance. When standing in the sky above this area and looking at the junction, it was like standing at the entrance to the Netherworld. He saw that there were several fights that broke out around him, and some were group fights with people continuing to perish as a result. In the distance, there was an area suspended above the Yellow Spring Sea. Further ahead, there was what appeared to be a continent hanging about at the entrance to the Hell Realm. Many cultivators who were fighting were approaching that direction. It seemed as if that was the place they wanted to escape to. Futian approached as well. After observing it for some time, he discovered that when the cultivators fled to the vicinity of that continent, those who gave chase would stop and dared not follow their prey there. It seemed that on that continent was something that made them extremely wary. What place is this? Futian was somewhat curious. This was the location given to him by Lord Yellow Spring. He had a feeling that Lord Yellow Spring wasn't lying to him, but the man had harbored some horrid thoughts. His figure flickered as he headed towards that continent. The surrounding space was incredibly terrifying, filled with an aura of destruction. Some cultivators watched Futian and saw him heading towards that continent, but no one approached him to do anything. Finally, Futian landed on the continent. When he fell from the sky towards the space below, the destructive currents between heaven and earth seemed to have disappeared. The horrific atmosphere of Infernal Mountain, Hell Realm, and the Yellow Spring Sea could no longer be felt. In this chaotic world, a place seemed to have been created outside of it. Chapter 2752 Miraculous Island. Chapter 2752 Miraculous Island. This continent was not huge, but it was located in the most dangerous place in the Dark World, in the middle of all these major regions of terror. It was simply incredible that such a continent could even exist here. It was almost a place born out of a dream. After Futian came upon this continent, he found that there was no atmosphere of danger on this land. There wasn't even anyone who was engaged in fighting. Outside of the continent, the fighting was fierce and terrible, but inside, all the fighting seemed to have ceased. How was that done? Futian moved towards the area below and landed on the continent. He discovered that the cultivational realms among the cultivators on this continent varied greatly. Some were extremely powerful, and then there were some whose cultivation was quite lowly. But everyone was working very hard here. Sir. Futian was walking on the road when he encountered an old man with a young boy. The old man stopped when he heard Futian's voice. He looked at Futian with a smile and said, "How can I help you, little friend? This is my first time here, and I was a little curious. Previously, when I was on the periphery of this continent, I saw constant fighting, like those people from the outside world delight in fighting and killing. Why is it that once I arrived here, I found that this continent is completely different from the outside?" It seems as if I have entered into another world. Yi Futian asked curiously. The old man smiled and looked at Yi Futian. Judging from your temperament, your cultivation should be considerable, probably at the peak Renhuang. Am I correct? Yi Futian nodded. He could sense the old man's cultivation was very strong as well. It seems that you are a cultivator from afar, the old man said again. But it's rather strange. You have come all this way to Illumination Island, yet you do not know what place this is. Indeed, I came from afar, but I was in a hurry, so I hadn't had time to inquire beforehand, Yi Futian responded, feeling shocked inside. In the center of the dark world, there was a place called Illumination Island? So it is, the old man nodded. Decades ago, I was just like the cultivators that you have seen on the outside world. After many perils of life and death, I almost died. But at the last moment, I happened upon this island, which saved my life. Since then, I have put aside the disputes and concerns of the outside world, concentrating on cultivating here instead. Illumination Island was named by the people who cultivated on this island. In this chaotic dark world, this island is probably the only source of light. This is indeed an island of miracles. It's an island surrounded by darkness, but somehow all slaughter and disputes are forbidden. Anyone who comes here is forbidden to kill. No matter the nature of the grievances, no revenge is allowed here. For many years, this place became many people's place of refuge. During this process, many ruthless people fled to this island but held on to their true nature. Later, all of them disappeared. Over time, everyone has come to know what kind of place this is. When the old man spoke, a spark of memory flashed through his eyes. Back then, he was someone known for his brutality. But after he escaped here, he began a transformation for the better. This world shouldn't just be about darkness. Indeed, it's an island of miracles, Yi Futian said. He could see that the old man had extraordinary cultivation, and his state of mind was exceptionally peaceful. It seemed that he was in a state of returning back to nature, which was rare and precious. Since you are here, you can stay on the island for a few days and experience the difference between this island and the outside world. After I came to the island, I was able to step into a realm that once eluded me, the old man explained patiently to Yi Futian. This stemmed from his current state of mind. If it were anyone else, they would probably not even bother to interact with Yi Futian, much less explain everything to him so patiently. I really want to experience it for myself, Yi Futian nodded. Since it is an island of miracles, there must be miraculous people on the island. Who is the master of this island? There is no master on this island. The old man suddenly became serious as he looked at Yi Futian intently. However, I know of whom you speak of. I hope you will not disturb her peaceful cultivation. Remember my advice. Having said that, the old man departed. Yi Futian displayed a strange look on his face, sensing the other was unwilling to tell him something. He was treating it as a grave matter. Yi Futian knew instinctively that the old man didn't want him to disturb the person he was inquiring about. However, Yi Futian had made up his mind that he must go and find out. He now understood who Lord Yellow Spring was referring to. At the core of the dark world was an island of light. All countless cultivators of the darkness aside, the existence of a path of light itself was already violating the will of darkness and went against the will of the Dark Lord. The meaning behind these two contradictory forces was anyone's guess. It was impossible for the Dark Lord not to know that such a place existed, yet he did nothing about it. One could only say that someone was residing on the island, and that person's relationship with the Dark Lord was rather special. Lord Yellow Spring might not have lied to him about this, but still, his intention was suspicious. Lord Yellow Spring likely might have sent him here to his death. Yi Futian continued moving forward, gathering information on the island. After quite some effort, he finally got the information he needed. Chapter 2753 An Amazing Woman. Chapter 2753 An Amazing Woman. Yi Futian cast a scrutinizing eye at the woman. The woman was wearing a white garment that was clean and simple. Her eyes were as clear and ethereal as the water of the lake. One look into her eyes was like bathing under the moonlight in a moonlit night, and one couldn't help but feel a sense of tranquility. I'm just taking a stroll around here. I'm sorry if I inadvertently disturbed the goddess. The boat Yi Futian was on approached this side of the shore as he made a slight bow to the woman. Facing a woman like this, he couldn't have any bad feelings toward her. Although her beauty was not the type that would topple a kingdom, it was an ethereal beauty out of this world, pure and flawless, like a goddess not of this world, without the sully of earthly influences. It doesn't matter. Would you like to come up and sit down? The woman asked politely. Perhaps she was merely being hospitable and courteous, but Yi Futian did not demur. He nodded and said, "Then I will take the goddess's offer." As he spoke, the boat under his feet accelerated forward, followed by his figure falling gently on the shore by the lake. He glanced at the surrounding mountains and greenery. Earnestly he said, "This is a true paradise, out of this world. The goddess cultivates here because you do not like to be disturbed by outside noise." "I'm sorry to have disturbed you." "Not at all. Other people come around here often," the woman replied calmly as she was making her way back. The fluctuations above the huts had disappeared, and the woman walked into one of them. Yi Futian did not follow her inside but sat by the lake instead. The woman didn't seem to mind his presence but returned to the hut to give the girls their lessons and teach them cultivation. Sitting where he was, Yi Futian could hear the sound of reading from inside the hut. Seeing this, Yi Futian shook his head with a wry smile. He then settled down quietly by the lake, lying down and feeling the tranquility. The sun was slightly intoxicating, and Yi Futian immensely enjoyed this moment of rare tranquility. Slowly he closed his eyes. He fell asleep unknowingly but peacefully. At his level of cultivation he no longer needed to sleep. Just simple meditation could help relax and rejuvenate him. However, in this environment, he could fall into a rare state of sleep. After a long time, Yi Futian, even in deep sleep, seemed to smell something good. His nose moved slightly, then he opened his eyes and sat up. "Big brother, older sister asked me to come and tell you it's time to eat." At this time, a little girl came to Yi Futian and gave him a smile when she saw Yi Futian getting up. Her voice was crystal clear, full of innocence. Yi Futian showed a soft smile in his eyes when he saw the little girl's innocent smile and asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Chi-Chi. The older sister gave it to me," the girl said with a smile. "Chi-Chi," Yi Futian smiled and asked, "Have you always studied here?" "Uh-huh," the girl nodded. "I have been here ever since I was a kid, and I have been studying with older sister. Big brother, come quickly, or the fish soup will be cold." As the girl spoke, she stretched out her hand to pull on Yi Futian's arm. Yi Futian got up with a smile, then took the girl's hand as they walked back and came to the outside of the hut. At the dining table outside the hut, the woman was serving soup to the girls and setting up the bowls and chopsticks. When she saw Yi Futian had arrived, she said in a low voice, "Let's eat together." "Thank you," Yi Futian nodded and sat down. The two didn't talk much. They had only exchanged a couple of sentences until now. "What's your name, big brother? Why did you come here? Did you encounter danger outside as well?" Chi-Chi asked Yi Futian. There was a hint of curiosity in those pure and innocent eyes of hers. "My name is Yi Futian, and it is true that I came here after having encountered a few things on the outside." Yi Futian smiled lightly and said, "Why do you ask? Did everyone who came here have encountered dangers out there?" "In the past, many people came here because they had encountered things that could not be resolved, so they came here to ask my sister for help." Chi-Chi giggled and continued, "Older sister is awesome, and she can resolve anything. We have all been sent here by the others, looked after by older sister. I must focus on cultivation, and when I grow up, I will help others like my sister." Yi Futian rubbed Chi-Chi's head, displaying a bright smile, and said, "Then you have to eat more so you can grow up faster." "Okay," Chi-Chi giggled. Yi Futian also sat there quietly, drinking the soup. The woman would occasionally talk to the girls, but she did not chat with Yi Futian. She seemed completely unsurprised by Yi Futian's arrival and did not ask him anything except for that initial question. The rest of the time, she did not even seem to be aware of Yi Futian's existence. While after Yi Futian finished the soup quietly, he returned to the lake alone, watching the calm surface of the lake. He took a deep breath and was ready to leave. It was not possible for him to do anything here, and he couldn't ask any questions, so he could only go. But at this moment, he heard footsteps behind him. Futian turned around and saw the woman had walked beside him, and the girls were playing elsewhere. "You are leaving?" the woman asked. Futian nodded. "So, you are not going to do what you came here to do?" The woman looked at the lake and asked him calmly. Obviously, she knew the purpose of Futian's visit. But now, Futian was about to leave without getting what he wanted, which surprised her. "I'm embarrassed to say so," Futian said. "This place outside the world shouldn't be disturbed by people from the world, so I am taking my leave." The woman didn't say anything more. Her eyes were still fixed on the lake. She said softly, "Go. You won't be in danger on this trip." After speaking, the woman turned around and walked back to the huts. Futian turned his head to look at the woman's departing figure, and there was a look of shock in his eyes. She knew the purpose of his coming here, and she knew where he was going. Only people in Yi Imperial Palace knew that he had traveled to the Dark World, and he did not tell anyone else before he left. If he thought about it, probably only the Dark Sage had some ideas of his visit. So, how could this woman know any of these? Could it be that she also possessed the ability to predict the future? Or rather, she was originally from the Dark Court and had some connection to the Dark Lord? This woman probably had never left this holy lake before. After all, she had those girls to take care of, so it was unlikely that she had gone to the Dark Court to cultivate. Futian took a deep breath and thought that there were an infinite number of amazing people and things that existed in the world. This woman that he encountered today was such an amazing person. As he put a stop to his curiosity, Futian flickered and disappeared from the shore of the lake. It didn't take long before Futian appeared in the sky above this island of miracles. The terrifying air currents were still circulating between the surrounding heaven and earth. It was as if it was a separate world from that sacred and peaceful island. Futian lowered his head and gave the island one last look. When he turned around, his figure flashed and rushed into the endless darkness. For some reason, he believed what the woman told him. Her calming voice contained a power that was extremely convincing. On this trip to the Dark Court, nothing would happen to him. Chapter 2754 received. Chapter 2754 received Azura City, the absolute center of the Dark World. Azura City was surrounded by Infernal Mountain, Hell Realm, and Yellow Spring Sea. The entire firmament was dark and gloomy, as terrifying destructive air currents flowed about, like a real city of destruction. Inside Azura City, there were countless top cultivators of the Dark World and numerous horrific forces. The surrounding area was full of tyrannical dark forces. This city was the absolute holy land of the Dark World. This place was governed by terrifying laws of darkness. In Azura City, life and death catastrophe was set upon them as soon as they were born. The will of darkness inside Azura City was everywhere. This aura had integrated into the air they breathed, as it was the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to those who cultivated in the Dark World. But for a newborn, it was a test of life and death. If the baby could not withstand the darkness and adapt to it, it would die prematurely. Only by passing the test of the darkness could its survival be assured. From a human perspective, this kind of test for a newborn was incredibly cruel. However, this was the belief held by countless cultivators inside Azura City. They firmly believed that if they could not adapt to the darkness, they would not escape their fate or live until adulthood. They were qualified to have a place here and continued living in the Dark World. Of course, a few people chose to leave Azura City before their babies were born. However, this kind of action was frowned upon by the people of Azura City, and these deserters were not qualified to be called citizens of darkness. So, there was no place for them in Azura City. Conversely, any babies that could adapt to this dark power at birth and coexist with the darkness would at the very least become a Renhuang when they grew up. This was also why there were so many terrifying cultivators in Azura City. They were born into the darkness. The Dark World was the cruelest world of all 7 realms. Even the Devil World was nowhere near this extent. The Devil World existed under the Devil Abyss with an equally harsh environment for cultivation. However, it had not subjected newborn babies to a test of life and death right at birth. All they did was continue to drill their descendants in cultivation later on. At this time, Futian came to the center of this cold-blooded dark world, Azura City. Standing under the dim and obscure sky, Futian could feel the destructive power hanging above his head. It seemed that Azura City was surrounded by a destructive aura. Cultivators from the other worlds would find this place highly unsuitable. Here and the Island of Miracles were like two separate worlds. It wasn't easy to imagine that they existed under the same sky. The fact that the Dark Court did not destroy that Island of Miracles was probably on account of that exceptional woman. Futian looked up into the distance. A towering building could be vaguely seen at the end of the darkness. The black temple stabbed into the sky, which could be seen even from a great distance away. No matter where in Azura City, one could look up and behold the place of worship in the Dark World. The Dark Court, Futian thought. He had no idea what he would encounter this time on his trip to the Dark Court or how Qingyao was doing right now. Without thinking further, Futian moved in that direction. When he took one more step, his figure disappeared from the spot. When he reappeared again, he was already in another place inside Azura City. Now that he had reached his destination, there was no longer a need to delay. He moved forward at full speed with Buddha's celerity, rushing full steam to the Dark Court. From a distance, the Dark Court seemed to be just a temple that towered into the sky, but that was because the distance was too far away. Once in the vicinity of the Dark Court, one realized just what kind of behemoth the Dark Court really was. Precisely because of this, the entire Azura field had the vantage point of seeing the Dark Court. Futian was standing at the outer periphery of the Dark Court at this time. When he looked at the area ahead, he practically saw another country. The Dark Court had many layers, and each layer was boundless and vast, populated with countless buildings. It was like an interface, and there was no end in sight. When he raised his head to look up, he found that the Dark Court was like layers of worlds. Futian was suspended in the air and felt inexplicable coercion shroud his body. Above the firmament, the currents of destruction fell upon him, and there were many cultivators who were looking in his direction. Cultivators from the Dark Court stepped out and moved straight in Futian's direction. Futian was soon stopped. Above him, a group of cultivators in jet-black armor appeared. This group of cultivators was all in the realm of Renhuang, acting as guards. Destructive currents flowed upon them, dangerous aura. "Who are you?" The guard in the lead came forward with the cultivation of Peak Renhuang. The black spear in his hand pointed at Futian, and a dark light shot out from his eyes. Futian came to pay a visit to the court, Futian said in a voice that was loud and clear. The guard's eyes sharpened. It was obvious that he had heard of his name before. At this moment, above the sky, a brilliant divine light sprinkled down from the realm above, and then several figures descended from the sky as if coming for the lower worlds, appearing in front of Futian. Immediately, the guards bowed in deference. The person who arrived was a young man. His temperament was more feminine than masculine. He had a fair face, exuding a sense of great danger. When he fixed his eyes on Futian felt incredibly uncomfortable. "Wah, come with me," the young man said as if he was already waiting for him, knowing that he would return to the Dark Court. Futian didn't think too much but followed the other party higher into the sky and entered the interior of the Dark Court. They passed through the layers of interfaces and continued going upward until they came to the 99th layer. There were not many cultivators here, but everyone's aura was beyond terrifying. Finally, Futian was brought before that temple, and it was the temple that was seen high in the sky from a distance. There was an open space in front of the temple, and Futian was standing there at the moment, quietly watching and waiting. This trip had gone much smoother than expected, without encountering any trouble. He had not even had to fight before he made his way here. At this moment, an extreme pressure descended from the sky, which made even Futian feel a sense of suffocation. He raised his head to look ahead, knowing that this was the will of the Dark Lord. The sky became dim and lightless, and the sky above Futian turned into a gigantic black screen. There seemed to be a black shadow that appeared above the temple. This black shadow seemed to have been embedded inside the temple, majestic and domineering. Just a vague shadow itself was enough to contain such supreme coercion. Yi Futian. A majestic voice came from the dark shadow in the temple, echoing between heaven and earth. Just a voice alone made Yi Futian feel like he was compelled to bow his head to worship the shadow. Yi Futian greets the Dark Lord. Yi Futian bowed to pay his respects. He had not expected the Dark Lord to receive him so readily. Chapter 2755 The Will of Darkness. Chapter 2755 The Will of Darkness. The gigantic figure above the temple lorded above Yi Futian and continued, Yi Futian, your cultivation is extraordinary. And on top of that, you have an unusual relationship with the heir I have chosen. Qingyao is willing to betray the Dark Court for your sake. What do you think should be done? Dark Lord, Qingyao has been good to me. I am sure you must know that Qingyao knew me before she joined the Dark Court. She only did what she did because she still remembered our friendship. However, other than that, Qingyao has never had the slightest intention of disobeying the Dark Lord, Yi Futian replied. People who cultivated in the Dark Court should have no emotions, except to do the will of the darkness. Her action was already an act of betrayal to the darkness. The Dark Lord roared as he released the pressure, giving Yi Futian a feeling of extreme oppression as he was placed under a terrifying coercion. He knew that the Dark Lord oppressed his will to make him emotionally unstable. Furthermore, you have slaughtered many cultivators of the Dark World. If one day you chose to be at war with the Dark World, wouldn't the heir I have raised by my own hands rebel against her own people? The Dark Lord continued to press. For a time, Yi Futian was speechless. In some sense, Yi Qingyao's action had indeed violated a major taboo of the Dark World. Yi Futian and the Dark World had never had a harmonious relationship since a long time ago, and battles had broken out between them several times. I can't predict the future, but I can promise you that I won't put Qingyao in a situation where she is forced to choose between the Dark Court and myself, Yi Futian replied. The things of the world are unpredictable. If you do fight with the Dark Court in the future, the situation will be beyond your control, let alone the empty promises you are making now, the Dark Lord said with an icy voice. What's more, I have never believed in promises. Then what does the Dark Lord require of me? Yi Futian asked directly. Since the Dark Lord had received him in person, he must have some ideas of his own, or else he would not have bothered talking this long with him. All the Dark Lord had to do was make one move, and all would be finished. High above the temple, the eyes of the Dark Lord stared at Yi Futian. A voice was heard saying, if you agree to join the Dark Court, I can bestow you with the position of the great shaman one day. Then, you may fight side by side with Qingyao, sweeping across the divine prefecture together and avenging Emperor Yi Qing at the same time. Yi Futian was a little surprised. The Dark Lord wanted to give him the position of the great shaman of the Dark Court? The great shaman of the Dark Court was the head of the three lords, and the first person under the command of the Dark Lord was now served by Lord Shaman. She had seen everything that happened and knew that Yi Futian had come to the Dark Court. If I kill him, what will you do? The Dark Lord asked Yi Qingyao. Then I will ask my lord to kill me as well, Yi Qingyao replied. Or else, the Dark Lord said coldly, I will bring darkness to darkness. Yi Qingyao still knelt on the ground without raising her head, but her icy voice sounded extremely determined. The Dark Lord said, no father, no king, no love, and no morality is the true meaning of darkness. But you still have your weaknesses. If I kill him, you will have fallen completely into darkness, which, perhaps, will be better for you. No, I will only bring darkness to darkness and make darkness disappear from the world, Yi Qingyao responded. Very well. The Dark Lord looked intently at Yi Qingyao and said, Yi Qingyao, I order you to return to God's continent right now, cooperate with the great shaman, and bring the darkness to the continent of the ruins that belonged to the gods. I want darkness to cover every inch of the continent. Today, the cultivators of all the worlds had gathered upon the continent of the ruins that belonged to the gods. This place was undoubtedly a perfect battlefield, suitable for starting a war and preferably a battle of the world. Yes, my lord. Yi Qingyao took the order and left without asking any more questions. After Yi Qingyao left, the Dark Lord stared at her departing figure for a long time. Everyone in the Dark Court knew that he was partial to Yi Qingyao, yet no one knew why. Yi Qingyao's life had been incredibly miserable and full of suffering. Her heart was cold, and her blood was equally cold. She was destined to belong to the darkness and bring misfortunes to the world. He raised his head to look in another direction. Yi Futian was trapped inside that darkness. He was thinking, how could he make Yi Futian be part of this darkness as well? It would be a pity if such a talented person did not become part of the darkness. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.